Okay, this is our daily study of Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, for those who have yard site for tonight, the 11th of Iyar. Louis Edelman, Jenny Bernstein, Anna Chernikoff, Morris Chernikoff, Goldie Fishman, Harry Goldstein, Esther Levine, Millie Rochelle, Chaim Rosenfeld, and Sarah Weiner. May their memory be for a blessing. So we are at the second to last Mishnah in the first chapter. This is chapter 1, Mishnah 17, and as always, a link to the text of the Mishnah will be in the first comment below. Shimon beno Omer. So we're quoting Shimon, the son of who was mentioned in the previous Mishnah, Rabban Gamliel. Now, first, a brief biographical note about Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel is the grandson of Hillel, so he's from the house of Hillel. And interestingly, that previous Mishnah is the first one that doesn't say Kibel Mehem, that he received the tradition from his predecessor. It just says Rabban Gamliel Omer. Right? The Mishnahs until now say Hillel and Shammai received the tradition from the rabbi who was quoted in the previous Mishnah. And the Tosfos Yom Tov is quoted as saying, it's kind of sad, that there is no more receive the tradition at this point, because at this point in history, machlokes or disagreement was so rampant that there was no longer any one person who was invested with this authority as having received the mantle of Torah from his predecessors. That really stopped after Hillel and Shammai. Hillel and Shammai, both of them, even though we don't rule and practice according to Shammai, but Hillel and Shammai were considered to be the bearing the mantle of tradition. And then by the time of Hillel's grandson, Rabban Gamliel, there is no more, not everyone held of his authority, even though he was the Nasi, the president of the people at the time. But there was no more universal authority at this point. And he's right before the destruction of the temple. So we're already into the Common Era. The temple was destroyed in 70 of the Common Era. And this is Rabban Gamliel, the Nasi. Okay, but now we're going to be quoting Shimon beno. So Shimon, his son, Rabban Gamliel's son, and there's a lot of Shimon ben Gamliels and Gamliels in this line, but Shimon lived through the destruction of the temple. So we're right around the year 70 of the Common Era. And the Kahati quotes some of his biography and says that he believed in peace with the Romans, and there was a group of Jewish militants at the time called the Zealots, that the rabbis called them the Baryonim, the ruffians. And according to some, Shimon was actually killed by the Jewish zealots because he was seen as too soft on the Romans. He wanted to sort of make overtures to them and make peace with them. But as you'll see, he was a sort of humble, meek person from his statements. So Shimon beno Omer, Shimon the son of Rabban Gamliel says, Kol yamai gadalti ben hachachamim, v'lo matzasi laguf tov el ashtika. My entire life I was raised amongst the sages, and I haven't found anything as good for one's person, or one's body even perhaps, that's how you could translate it, than silence. I have not found anything as good for oneself than silence. And we see a lot of this in Pirkei Avot. A lot of rabbis saying, choose your words very carefully, speak little and do a lot. And I keep coming back to that in our age of Twitter and social media, this is incredibly important, especially for our time. So I haven't found anything better than silence. So I also think of, actually the Kahati quotes funny Gemara in Psachim, which says, silence befits the wise, and all the more so the foolish. Kind of funny, right? Even if you're smart, you shouldn't talk too much. Even more so if you're dumb. I think there's an English expression like better to be quiet and have people wonder if you're a fool than to speak out loud and then confirm that you are. Something like that. I think I mangled it. I'll Google it after. Anyway, so there's a lot of different ways to say this. I also think the words of Rabbi Israel Salanter, who is a great Jewish master of Musar, which means Jewish school of self-improvement. And he had a very wise statement that not everything that one thinks should be said, not everything that one says should be written down, and not everything that one writes down needs to be published. So really wise, especially for our time, right? Where we have our Twitter accounts and we say everything we're thinking all the time and it causes controversy and anger. How many fights do you see on social media because someone perhaps didn't choose their words so carefully and then they rile people up and it just causes anger and contention. Okay. Then he says, "V'lo hamidrash ha'eker ela hamasa," and it's not the expounding of the law which is the most important thing, but rather the practice of it. So this relates to the previous statement. Silence is important, and even when it comes to teaching Torah, when a rabbi's sitting like I am now, right? I'm teaching, but do I practice what I preach? That's what's important, and anything you might be teaching. It's not the sitting and poring over it and talking about the Torah for hours, but rather the practice of it, which is more important. Okay. V'chol hamar b'dvarim may be chet. And anyone who speaks excessively inherently causes sin. So he has proofs to this. Hold on a moment. Yeah, so he has anyone who speaks excessively will cause sin. Now, why is that? Well, speech leads to all sorts of sins, and this is a powerful lesson for that I like to teach on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, when we say all the al chaitz, we hit our chest al chait. Something like a quarter of the al chaitz are sins of speech, because that's what most people are doing, right? Most people are not robbing banks and killing. We are on a day-to-day basis committing sins of speech. How do we start out Yom Kippur with Kol Nidre? What does Kol Nidre mean? We stand in terror and say all of the vows and the commitments that I might have made this past year that I did not live up to. It's a strange way to start the holiest day of the year, but not really if you think about it. Those are the sins we do every day. We make these verbal commitments. That's a sin of speech, right? And then you don't live up to it. And we see our vows as having this immense inherent spiritual power. I made a commitment and I didn't keep it. That's a sin. Um, so something like a great percentage, I think it's a quarter of the al qates, have to do with sins of speech. Making a commitment that you didn't keep. Telling gossip is the classic one. Embarrassing someone, saying something mean to somebody, right? Blasphemy, heresy, saying things about perhaps insulting God or the religion in ways that you shouldn't. So there's so many sins of speech, and that's why Shimon says, whoever speaks too much inherently will lead to sin because so much of our conversations are just sinful and frivolous. Okay, now it doesn't mean shouldn't talk, right? But be careful with your words. That kind of attitude. Okay, so with that, we will make the El Maleh memorial prayer. El Maleh Rachamim Shochein Bameromim Amitzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei Hashechina B'Malos Kedoshim Utahorim Kizor Harakia Masirim es nishmos kol ha'azkaros shel halayla shelchu li'olamam ba'avur shemispalim bad haskaras nishmasam began eden tehei menuchasam lachein bal harachmim yastireim b'seis yokenafav li'olamim yitzor b'tzor achayim es nishmasam Adonai hu nachlasam yanuchu b'shalom mishkavam and omar amen. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of your presence in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine as the resplendence of the firmament, to the souls of Louis Edelman, Jenny Bernstein, Anna Chernikoff, Morris Chernikoff, Goldie Fishman, Harry Goldstein, Esther Levine, Millie Rochelle, Chaim Rosenfeld, and Sarah Weiner, in whose memory we pray, who have gone to their supernal world. May their resting place be in Gan Eden. Therefore, may the All-Merciful One shelter them in the shelter of his wings forever and bind their soul in the bond of life. The Lord is their heritage. May they rest in peace. And let us say Amen.